So border crossings are down about 99% in 100 days. Not many people, even the most optimistic, thought it would be this successful. Perhaps except my next guest, Tom Homan, who's the border czar, and has been working all elements of trying to secure our borders and collect the millions that got here over the last 4 years. And he's my guest. Tom, great to see you. Today's your day. You opened up at 8:30 this morning with a press conference. Day one, 100 days in. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a great day celebrating the success of President Trump and the men and women of the United States Border Patrol, right? As you said, border crossing is down 96, 97, 99%, depending on what week you look at. But we have the most secure border in the history of this nation right now.
Right.
President Trump was able to accomplish in 7 weeks what Joe Biden couldn't or wouldn't do in 4 years.
Wouldn't. You believe that it was intentional?
Absolutely. I mean, he's the first president in the history of the nation who came into office and unsecure the border on purpose. He said he's going to end ICE detention. He's going to put a moratorium on deportation. He's going to give free health care to illegal aliens. He's going to have amnesty and DACA. You make those type of promises to the whole world, that's not an accident. The most people in the entire world would come and take advantage of that giveaway.
So if you look at the Marines on the Mexican southern border, you look at the military on our southern border, when you look at the elimination of catch and release and the CBP app, out of all those elements, what's the most important? What is the most to stop the flow? Because we used to have an overwhelming population in the remain of Mexico, right? They were stopped, they had to stay there. That doesn't exist today. Why is that?
No catch and release. You're not getting released in the country. You can come to our border, but you're going to be returned.
So they don't try.
They don't try because, the last administration, they knew if you cross the border illegally, you'd be processed within 24 hours and flown to the city of their choice. That ended. When you come to our border, you're not going to be allowed to enter the country. Like under President Trump, since day one, we've had 9 people released, as I talked about this morning. 4 were material witnesses. We needed them in a criminal investigation. 4 were significant medical issues. The other one was a humanitarian case. We ended catch release. People know that we're enforcing laws, and there's no way you're going to get in this country by crossing the border illegally.
Educate me on this. Obama, they said, sent out 200, 300,000, got deported. Those 300,000 did not get hearings. So why are you supposed to be giving hearings to these people? I don't get it. Like, when we round people up, they're supposed to get their due process. It's not possible, is it?
These same people are demanding all these extra hearings, due process. Where were they when you had 10.5 million people come to our borders, released millions of the country under violating the statute of parole and asylum? I mean, where were they when you got a 600% increase in sex trafficking? Where were they when 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl on the open border? Where were they, where no inspected terrorist record numbers coming across the border? They didn't follow the legal process to get here. Now all of a sudden they demand a legal process to deport them. They didn't care there was no vetting done to get here, but now they want vetting done, everyone being removed. We're enforcing laws of this country, and we're following the statutes in federal law. Alien Enemies Act is an act that was written by Congress, enacted by Congress. We're using every tool in our tool shed to make this country safe again, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
How long do you need the military at the border, knowing that there's a budget to be aware of?
We need them there. We need them there now. And look, yesterday, like I said, we only had 33 gotaways. That number needs to get to 0. But if we pull back now.
Yesterday at 33?
Last 24 hours, 33 gotaways.
Wow.
Down from 1,800.
How do you know they're gotaways? So do you catch them on video and you can't stop them?
On video, drone traffic, or sensor traffic. And but going from 1,800 on average a day to 33 is pretty good. It's 33 too many. But I think you look at the number of people released. Like I said, we released 9, and at the same time period we released 9. Joe Biden released 184,000. But we need the military on the border. Like Pete Hegseth said, who I love Pete. He said a great thing by saying they defended borders all over the world. Now they're defending our border. I think they're where they should be.
So who decides who gets on that plane and gets flown out to El Salvador or other people? What goes into that? Do you play a role in that?
I play an oversight role, but ICE really depends. They create the manifest. They work very closely with DOJ and Department of State. And that's what's good. I sent these many people through no due process. No due process. We spend hundreds of hours on every illegal alien to ascertain, to ensure they're a member of TDA MS-13. A lot of due process, hundreds of hours. So we got the Department of Justice at the table. We got the Department of State at the table. We got DOD at the table. Every day we meet, there's a lot of due process to make sure that everybody we remove is a public safety threat or national security.
So we got this morning. It came out in the Wall Street Journal. Trump to sign order requiring nationwide list of sanctuary cities and states. How does that help you?
Sanctuaries are sanctuary for criminals. When you knowingly release an illegal alien public safety threat back in the community, it makes it more dangerous for the community, of course, makes it more dangerous for our officers, and makes it more dangerous for the illegal alien. We want to take possession of the public safety threat inside a jail, where they choose to lock somebody in a jail cell. Give us access in the jail. It's much more efficient.
But what is making a list of having them, just to be able to call them out? And
we're going after all of them.
Okay.
Sanctuaries are sanctuary criminals, and we think they're violating federal law. I mean, every elected mayor, governor, and city council person, you think they all want public safety threats
you would think
in the
so.
community.
Great. Tom Homan's had a great 100 days. How after 4 years? What's this border going to look like after 4 years? It's going to be great. Tom Homan, thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
President Trump kicking off 100 days in office this week with a media blitz, and it sounds like he's feeling very good in this new interview. Take a listen here.
One of the things that a couple of your advisors have told us is that you're having a lot of fun this time.
I am.
That there's just
I'm having a lot of fun considering what I do. You know, what I do is such serious stuff.
Serious stuff indeed. The president marking his 100-day milestone with a huge focus on immigration, with stunning raids in 2 separate states, one at a migrant nightclub, resulting in the arrest of hundreds of illegal immigrants. And the White House, well, they were up early today, lining the lawn with posters displaying alleged illegal immigrants' mugshots and crimes they committed. They also held a rare early morning briefing with the border czar, Tom Homan.
This is unprecedented success. The border secure. President Trump saving lives. President Trump has proven no one does this better than President Trump. There is no equal, it's not even close. This is a border emergency until we end it, end all of it. You can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted, judge or not.
And so much for nobody is above the law. The media sure seems to have forgotten its favorite slogan from the days of Trump's legal problems after the arrest of a Milwaukee judge accused of helping an illegal immigrant in her courtroom escape ICE agents.
This is all a clown show.
Wants to be king. A king doesn't have a constitution. A king just does whatever he wants. This is a constitutional crisis.
It strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic. People are sometimes called to do civil disobedience.
Arresting a judge today. Are you kidding me? That is a sign of weakness, not strength.
Judge, I thought the whispering was over. That was Biden, and Rachel Maddow got in on that. 100 days is a time for a little reflection, and the White House saying here are the wins that we have so far.
You know, there's so much to talk about here, and I'll be as quick as possible. Look, 100 days have been a remarkable success, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think the most important thing is immigration and what's happening, and the American people agree. 55% are agreeing that what the president is doing on immigration is incredible, and the transparency of this administration and the actual, Trump speed with which they're working is unbelievable. It's like we have 2 press conferences every day. It's like you feel you're actually working in the Oval Office. But let's talk about those 100 people who were arrested. During the Biden administration, 170 911 calls, emergency calls, and nothing was done about this club where these TDA gangbangers and everyone else are doing drugs, selling guns, doing all kinds of illegal stuff, prostitution, you name it. It's an organized criminal enterprise. So kudos to Pam Bondi for getting involved in there. And now, what the president does and his administration is takes a picture of every one of them, puts them outside the White House with their photo and what crime they're charged with. Excellent. Because punishment is not enough in these cases. They have to be socially ostracized. And that's what we did in the public square when we were a young country. Everyone knew what was going on and who was charged with what. So as far as I'm concerned, those individuals who want to blur their faces on the left, they say we should blur them. Why? Do they have privacy rights? Are they even citizens here? But let's move on to the judge. This judge should be removed from the bench, all right? No one knows better what she was doing than she herself. She made it clear in terms of her actions and in her words, her intent and in what she did. What's even more egregious here with this judge is that this defendant, who was in a courthouse, which was the essence of accountability, and for her, it's an escape. But what she did was this guy was in court for a trial on a domestic violence case. 2 witnesses and victims were in the courtroom with the prosecution about to go forward. And this judge decides that she's going to move them out of the courthouse, tells ICE, you go see the other judge, the chief administrative judge, to get them out of the way, and creates a danger in the public so that there could be a shootout and other people could be harmed as well. But let me finally say that I want to know everything about this judge. If this judge went so far as to try to get an illegal on trial for domestic violence out of the courthouse so that he not be held accountable, I want to know how many of these cases have been dismissed. I want to know how many victims have had a case go forward where their rights were protected, what the prosecutors have to say about this judge, because it's not enough for her to just be charged with this crime. And by the way, she may have judicial immunity, but only for judicial acts. This is not a judicial act.
Those questions crossed my mind too. In the kickoff to the first one, or the first 100 days, the administration led with their strong foot, which is the border security and immigration. Good idea?
I suppose so. But first of all, the first 100 days is a media creation.
Yes.
Right? It's just designed as a hook for producers to come up with an angle in the summer. Because what else are we going to do right now? There's nothing really going on. The criticism, though, about Trump's 100 days is marred by one thing. They claim Republicans are critical. They're not. They love what they see. They just want more. And then when you look at the Democrats' criticism, you have to ask a follow-up question. What is it that's bothering you? They don't have an answer because they actually have no solutions. It's always these platitudes like Chuck Schumer. It's a constitutional crisis. What does that really mean? Can you point to anything? But it is only 100 days, and yet it feels like 1,000. It's because Trump does easily 10 times what any previous president does. It's like you went from a dial-up modem to 5G. It's like I don't have to sit in front of my laptop and wait for something to happen. He says it and it happens. And you're right. He basically pointed to the what do you call it, to the stands, the bleachers, and said, "I'm going to hit a home run," and he did that on illegal immigration. He didn't just end it. I mean, he flattened it. Yeah. And by doing that, he exposed that the Democrats have been lying all the time when they were saying their hands were tied. Well, it looks like their hands had blood on them because they let a lot of criminals in that killed people. He also crushed the structural racism of DEI. He fulfilled his promise to get women out of sports, and that was quick. And now you have imposters like Slotkin going, well, it really wasn't an important issue at all. Well, if it wasn't that important, why were you so cowardly and not actually defending the women and the girls who are subject to that travesty? The only thing that's kind of out there's a couple of things. Tariffs, you can't judge that in 100 days. But as predicted, the people that were screaming about the massive drop in the stock market are not saying a word, Harold, about it returning to normal or near normal. And we also have to think about DOGE. Are we even close to the goal necessary to prevent economic collapse? No. And everything we just talked about is pointless unless we solve that.
Okay, and Jesse, let me go to you next. We'll save Harold for last so that he can,
Why?
Well, I figured we were just on a roll.
Sure, let's keep it going.
Keep this roll going. Can you keep the roll going?
I just love that Trump put these signs on the lawn. Only a president who watches cable news all day could come up with a stunt like that. He's like, you know what? You wanted to see my mugshot? Well, here's Jose's mugshot, and he's going home. Adios. This is in the back of every single live shot all day long, and they can't do anything about it. But they did at MSNBC, Dana. They pixelated the faces. Now, we have a thing in cable television. You only blur faces of minors. They're blurring the faces of people convicted of raping minors. And why are they coddling these people? Dana, as you know, there was a school of thought during the time of, I believe, European imperialism. It is known as the noble savages. Now, the Western elites believe that these indigenous people were almost more morally superior to the West because they were in harmony with nature. They were pure. They were uncorrupted by the materialism of modern society. So they were put on a pedestal, and they were not allowed to be characterized as evil in any way. And this is what the modern left is doing with these people. They are coddling them and protecting them. And even if they do something bad, it's blurred out, it's ignored, because you have to keep that the same way. The judges are doing it too. They're making planes turn around. They're keeping these guys in their homes, MS-13, and now they're aiding and abetting the escape. They have sworn to administer justice, and then they're letting these people escape justice by putting themselves and the criminal above the law. And if Trump tries to execute the law, he's not allowed to do that. I have a law in my family.
Oh.
The children are not allowed to sleep or sit or touch the floor of an airport. We were at the airport today. What does Jesse Jr. do? The kid sits. He knows I can't stand that. I say, Jesse, you can't sit on the floor of the airport. He goes, okay. You know what he does? He squats. He did that on purpose. And I pick him up. And then you know what he does? He steals his sister's bag, sits on the bag. That's violating the spirit of the law in my family. So I grab him, I pull it up like that. Now, I'm allowed to administer justice. I'm allowed to execute the law of the land. It's my family. And if someone was to come in and say, your son's allowed to sit on the floor, or you're not allowed to pull your son up from the airport floor, that would be dangerous. Because if you allow that, you have chaos.
Wow.
Keep it rolling, Harold.
Yeah, Harold, I don't know if you could keep it rolling after that.
I'm taking notes on airport rules for my kid. I think those are good rules.
It's a good rule.
Good to be back with everybody. I'd say a couple things. FDR was the first person to talk about the first 100 days because the country was in economic disrepair and the country wanted to know what happened the first 100 days. The polling we see today, there's some good things for the president. You mentioned some of the DEI stuff, some of the gender stuff, and obviously some of the immigration, but really the border. The president's numbers are mid-50s. I'm part of the mid-50s. I would say I like what the president's doing on the border. We cut down on people crossing it. I'd probably be with the mixed group. It was about 48-48, depending on which poll who looked at how the president was doing on immigration. I have a different opinion about the judge. I think the judge in the case in Milwaukee and the ICE agents were wrong. I don't think you correct that wrong by arresting her. They got that guy they wanted. And I think the Chief Justice there should, let me just finish. I think the Chief Judge should say that you shouldn't, if we're harboring anybody, we shouldn't be doing that. 3, as much as the president was good on the border, we shouldn't kid ourselves, and no one around the table should. The reason the president was elected was the border and the economy. We talked about inflation and the high prices. Dana has said this before. It's the next 100 days that are most important. But if President Trump's numbers were high on the economy, then the president wouldn't be upside down on his approval ratings. He has the lowest approval in 100 days, first 100 days, since they've done polling, which was since 1945. And that's because the economy and how people are feeling about their economic futures are down. Now, I'm consistent on this. When President Biden and his team were telling the American people that they were doing better than the numbers suggested, I came on this show and others and said there are a long line of politicians who are sitting at home today because they tried to tell people you're doing better than you think you are. 70% of those polled believe that we are at or near a recession. A little more than that number believes that we're not doing right on tariffs, whatever anyone around the table wants to say about tariffs. And about that same number don't like all of the cuts in government. They like the idea and they believe that we can shrink and get out the redundancies and the fraud and abuse, but they think we can be doing it a little bit better. But I end on this. Democrats shouldn't show too much glee here. We have to offer ideas ourselves. The first 100 days, the president did not end the war in Ukraine, like he said, in 24 hours. He did not end all the fighting in the Middle East, and he certainly hasn't reduced prices. But guess what? That is not redounded to our benefit yet. It will only redound when we actually start talking about ideas and we put forward positive plans for the future.
Well, then,
and that's the next segment.
Well, then you're not going to like the next segment, Harold, because we got some things to show you. Up next, the Democrats are singing again to stop President Trump and Republicans. Be right back.
Reflected in a brand new poll, a solid majority, 55% approving of President Trump's performance on border security, and the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in an early morning press conference, one that we have really not seen in some time, if ever. She's saying that Trump lived up to his word from the campaign.
President Trump's central campaign promises was to secure the border and end this invasion. In just under 100 days, 99 now to be exact, the president has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise. America's borders are now secure because of President Trump. He has restored the rule of law, enforced our immigration laws, and defended America's sovereignty. The results have been nothing short of extraordinary.
They are going to fly this flag. Peter Doocy live at the White House, beginning a new hour, and how the administration is highlighting the crackdown. And Peter, good morning there.
Good morning, Bill. This week of the 100th day is all about sending messages. That is what the 100 ICE arrest mugshots behind us on the North Lawn are all about. And that is what the arrest of a Milwaukee County judge is all about. It's a message to others in the judicial system about what could happen if they try to help illegal immigrants skirt enforcement.
Would you ever arrest somebody higher up on the judicial food chain, like a federal judge or even a Supreme Court justice?
Well, that's a hypothetical question. Again, I defer you to the Department of Justice for individuals that they are looking at or individual cases. Anyone who is breaking the law or obstructing federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs is putting themselves at risk of being prosecuted, absolutely.
We've also got a new update on the daring theft of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's purse at a D.C. restaurant containing $3,000 and personal effects by a man believed to be in the country illegally.
I don't have the criminal history, but I know the one that stole the purse is supposedly in the country illegally. But, you know, pick the wrong person to steal a purse from.
Tom Homan also said that we have been talking for years about illegal immigrants in this country being somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 million. He thinks the number now is more like 20 million, with 700,000 or so having criminal histories. Bill.
Okay, Peter, thank you. Lead a new hour there on the North Lawn. Peter Doocy, thanks for that. Beautiful day in D.C.
Let's bring in outnumbered co-host and Fox News contributor Kayleigh McEnany. So good to have you. So it's not just Republicans that are supportive of the president's actions. Here's Congressman Cuellar. He's a Democrat from Texas.
People were saying our parents came in the legal way. They came in, became legal residents, and they came in and did it the right way. But when you see people jumping in, not knowing who they are, that's something wrong.
So that was from his town hall. That's what he saw. And we'll just ask the control room to put up on the board here the numbers and the comparison from Biden to Trump. And as you reflect on that first 99 days, just the stark contrast.
This was a rather interesting number, and Caroline shared this today. Bill Malugin had obtained it a few weeks ago as well. And I know President Trump's like, who are the 9 people who were released during my tenure, because he's a perfectionist. This is their top issue, and they know it. When you look at any poll, the Washington Post poll just out, 52% say their deportation has been just right or not enough. We also, the CNN poll from 2 weeks ago, that 56% of the country wants all illegal immigrants deported. That is an enormous number. And that's not some. They're saying all. So this is a top issue for them. They know it. They're touting it. It is very smart to do so. And Henry Cuellar getting on board, it's unsurprising. He's one of the more moderate Democrats who said, hey, I want to get on the winning train on this issue.
Border District, too.
Yes.
Yeah,
kind of been on the right side of that, the Republican side of the issue for some time. The resistance is not quite a capital R yet, but people like J.B. Pritzker out of Illinois are trying to make it so. He was in New Hampshire. Focus on New Hampshire now instead of the following.
Already?
Yeah, on Sunday, sure enough.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
Okay, to which Elon Musk responded on X with one word. He said, crazy. That from Musk. What do you think, Kayleigh?
So Pritzker went on to say, listen to these lines. He says that one day the portraits of Republicans will be in a museum reserved for tyrants and traitors. He went on to say we'll never join Republicans in the special place in hell reserved for quislings and cowards. So tepid rhetoric, right? Not at all. He is positioning himself in the lane to cater to the far left. The most eye-opening poll I've seen, I'm sure he's looking at this. There was an NBC poll from April 2017, so 1 year into Trump's first term. 33% of Democrats said we do not want you to work with Trump, even if that means not getting things done. That number, 1 year into Trump's term now, is 65% who say, we don't want you working with Trump. That's the NBC poll, even if it means not getting things done. So the resistance in the left of the party is enormous. It's powerful. It's passionate. It's animating people like Pritzker, perhaps too much with this.
So last week we were showing the poll numbers that said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was sort of on the rise for that left-wing part, but would she have, I mean, this is all so hypothetical, but would she have competition from a Pritzker?
I don't know about a Pritzker. I mean, he doesn't quite have the name ID.
She's got personality.
But hey, you get these, hot and powerful lines on the debate stage. They can make a difference. But I put Pritzker in kind of the same category as like a Chris Christie on the right. Chris Christie's very good on his feet, sharp arguer. He has the lines, but it just didn't quite translate.
I think his language is kind of alarming. I mean, a lot of people consider him to be a low-key kind of...
Oh, no, I don't know. That guy's...
For a low-key billionaire out of Chicago, right? He said, never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
Yeah. No,
is that what we're in for?
I was in rural Illinois this weekend, so the redder part of the state. They know their governor. They know he's hot. They know he's prone to this kind of rhetoric, but that is what we're in for. I mean, I think you're looking at a Democratic primary. That kind of language is going to be what you see on the debate stage.
All right.
Maybe not from a Newsom or Whitmer, but definitely from a president.
But we have a few years to get to.
We do.
Kaylee, thanks. Have a great day. It's good to see you.
See you at noon.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, I'm here at the White House as President Trump is going to mark 100 days in office tomorrow. Today, he is highlighting his border agenda. Attorney General Pam Bondi is here now, and she has everything to do with the video you just saw in Colorado Springs. Ms. Attorney General, thanks so much for seeing me. My first time seeing you since you got the job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us what you were thinking about when we were watching that video seconds ago.
America is safer tonight thanks to Donald Trump. Last night, Brian, what they did, so to back up, during the Biden administration, they received 170 911 calls to that club alone. That club we were just watching, 170 calls. Wouldn't you think that would have been a red flag?
Wouldn't.
Nothing happened. Guns, shootings, ag batteries, nothing happened. So under Donald Trump, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, ICE, everyone went in together. DEA led this investigation, went in, got 115 illegal immigrants, aliens in our country, arrested them, 2 with warrants, 12 guns seized. So what would happen in this club is you would go in, security would give you a menu of drugs, cocaine, there's something new called pink cocaine, meth, you could go in a bathroom stall, get that, there was prostitution, all these things going on. And we just now identified a member of Sinaloa cartel was also in there.
So that's interesting because it's not a sanctuary city, right?
No.
Denver is, but Colorado Springs isn't. You look at this for the longest time. What is the downside of raiding that club during the Biden years? Like, what's the negative side of it? Do you prefer illegal drug use and illegal aliens?
And prostitution and the violence and the shootings and the guns that was happening in that club, and no one did anything after 170 911 calls. Yet President Trump immediately, that was a really dangerous operation, too. And that's why there were 300 agents all working hand in hand, and that's what Donald Trump has done so well. All of our agencies work so well together. Went in there, got these bad guys out, 115 arrests, 12 guns off the streets, lots of drugs off the streets now, less prostitution as a result of it.
It's so interesting. I know Kellyanne Conway did a great job focusing on fentanyl when it started emerging as the plague that's killed our country and so many young people in the first term. But you guys have really amped it up working with border security. In terms of fentanyl, taking it off the streets, do you have a number there?
Yeah, Brian, when I was state AG, I actually worked with Kellyanne when she was in the White House on this because the fentanyl was just emerging on the market. And yes, now since Donald Trump has been in office, DEA has seized over 21 million fentanyl pills. That's 21 million lives saved, in my opinion, off the streets.
No doubt about it. We also know, too, at the cusp of all the tariffs is getting China to stop sending the precursors to Mexico. If China would actually act responsibly, that would help your job a lot. It wouldn't even get to you, hopefully. So let's talk about what's going on with these judges. The sensational video last week of having to arrest a judge, and now we have another judge reportedly in Wisconsin boycotting their courtroom or threatening to unless this judge is released. Tell me about this.
Sure. Well, the judge, last name is Dugan. She is in Milwaukee. And what she did to set the stage for that, there was a domestic violence case pending. This defendant was charged with pummeling a man in the face 30 times. That's like an MMA fight. He fell to the ground. He had strangled him. Then he punched a woman with a closed fist so hard in the face that she fell to the ground. Both victims went to the hospital. Domestic violence cases, it's hard enough to get a victim to cooperate. Both victims were sitting in that courtroom wanting justice with a state prosecutor. Court goes on. All of a sudden, the case isn't on the docket. Defendant's nowhere to be found. They found out that the judge learned that ICE was outside because he was an illegal alien from Mexico to arrest him, to deport him. She found that out. She raised her voice with the ICE, told them to go see the chief judge, came back in. While court was going on, she motioned for the defense attorney and the defendant to come up, snuck them out through a private chamber. You can't make this up. In her courtroom, snuck them out a back exit so he could run down the street. ICE ended up chasing him down the street. Someone saw him, chased him, caught him eventually. But the reason ICE, they make arrests in courtrooms all the time is because it's safe. A defendant has gone through security. They don't have a weapon. It's an easy arrest. No one's injured. But because she did this, she jeopardized the lives of law enforcement officers, even the defendant. By doing this, they had to have a chase down the street while victims of a crime were sitting in a courtroom.
Judge in jail?
Judge got arrested. She sure did.
So David Brooks, you know him, the columnist for the New York Times, who on PBS over the weekend said that the judge acted heroic.
Well,
what do you say to that?
I say the victims of crime should be very happy today because these victims of crime, they deserve justice. This is a criminal judge sitting on a criminal bench. And anyone who's going to let any criminal defendant out a back door is absurd.
How much harder is your job in these sanctuary cities?
It's difficult, but we have Tom Homan, we have HSI, we have incredible partners working with us to get in there. And state law enforcement, Brian, they want to do their jobs, most of them. Their hands have just been tied.
It's going to have to go right up the court ladder.
It sure is, and that's what we're doing.
Right, and busy day, especially they salute today is about border security and security in the country as you look back at 100 days. And you hope, of course, the best is yet to come.
That's right.
Attorney General, thanks so much.
Now the Trump White House has revved up its crackdown on migrant criminals, fulfilling a campaign promise. In Colorado, DEA and ICE agents busted a massive underground nightclub that they say was filled with violent gang members, making more than 100 arrests. Watch some video of that moment. And in Florida, ICE and law enforcement agencies arrested nearly 800 illegal aliens in Operation Tidal Wave. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this is just the beginning.
Over this past weekend, it was announced that through Operation Tidal Wave, a joint effort between ICE Miami and Florida law enforcement agencies, nearly 800 illegal aliens were arrested during the first 4 days alone. Among those arrested were a Colombian murderer, alleged MS-13 and 18th Street gang members, and a Russian with a red notice for manslaughter. And on the other side of the country, in the early Sunday morning hours, DOJ and DHS together launched a joint raid of an illegal alien underground nightclub used by Tren de Aragua in Colorado Springs, Colorado. DHS took more than 100 illegal aliens into custody, and many drugs and weapons were also seized. Operation Tidal Wave is a preview of what is to come around this country.
Just a preview. The Trump team sending that warning, turning the White House lawn into a mugshot wall of 100 illegal aliens ahead of President Trump's 100th day in office. Look at this. Dozens of posters displaying the mugshots of those illegal immigrants that have been planted along the White House driveway, the People's House driveway. Border Czar Tom Homan says, quote, President Trump is saving lives.
Now, President Trump and this administration here, their success is unprecedented. We beat Trump's first administration on border success. Border numbers are historic low. Today, as I'm standing here, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation. And the numbers prove it.
An exciting point to be at, Larry, that took a little bit of muscle getting here. And as the White House press secretary says, but this is just the beginning.
You know, Democratic pollster Mark Penn, who I think is one of the best in the business, the Harvard-Harris poll, I think it's called, one of the few you can trust. We'll get to these other terrible polls as the show goes on, but shows nearly 80% of Americans support not just the zero border closing, the zero immigration to the border, but the deportations. The deportations, okay? We'll get to this crazy judge in Milwaukee later on, I'm sure. But the Democrats find themselves in the position of opposing this, which is remarkable to me. That's point number one. Point number two, Trump has done a fabulous job. We're 100 days in. You got all these Washington Post, New York Times polls trying to show how bad he's doing. They're all fixed. They're all fake numbers, by the way. He has cleared it out. He sneezed, and the border went to zero, okay? Just one sneeze. Don't come here. And the border went to zero. It was fantastic. Now the harder part is the deport. It was just a quick allergy sneeze. That's all it took, really. Biden couldn't do it in 4 years, okay? Trump ought to go down to the border, I think, and remind people, sort of walk along the border and how empty it is. I mean, you could play catch with your 9-year-old girl at the border. That's how safe it is. So that's terribly important what's happened here. And it just shows in the 100 days what he is doing right.
And Larry talks about, reminding and showing. I mean, look at that on your screen right now. What a fantastic visual and visceral reminder to Americans what they were facing and now who is gone, Molly.
Yeah, this remains his strongest issue right now. And as Larry was talking about the polls, there's a swath of polling that shows the border and immigration is his strongest issue right now. So this is smart to focus on this as he's coming up into the 100 days and as he heads to Michigan and will most likely shift a little bit and start talking about his economic plans and his plans for the next 100 days and many days after that. But among those signs is an arrest of a Jamaican national convicted of child rape out of Boston. So it kind of brings it full circle to what the administration is trying to do to push back on sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, and ties all of this together. And so they've done that over the course of today and also over the course of the last couple months, really pushing that message forward. And the polling shows that the American people are liking this part of what he has done so far.
Which is in contrast, as Larry pointed out, to what the sort of mainstream media will have you think, which is that Trump is somehow sinking in approval.
Sure, and he's not. I mean, you look at the polls on deportation, for instance, Washington Post, ABC found 52% think he's doing just the right amount.
Even those,
or not
even
enough.
those phony polls.
Even Washington Post and ABC. I want to pull up those White House lawn signs again, if we can, because I think this is very important, what the White House is doing here, the communications team. They're showing their work. Now, you might not be able to see it on your screen, but the descriptions of these individuals, first-degree murderer, sexual abuse of a child, kidnapping and rape, murder, rape of a child, distribution of fentanyl, sexual assault of minors, lewd acts in front of a child, sexual contact with a child. In other words, not good actors. And we know that 73% of those arrested during the Trump era are people with pending criminal charges or criminal convictions. But look at this. I have some brilliant commentary from none other than Joe Scarborough's team over at Morning Joe. They had a guest on. Guess what this guest said about those signs you're looking at right there? All of these people, they're mugshots. They've been booked and charged with crimes. Well, here's what they have to say at MSNBC. We don't know if they've had due process. Okay, they're booked. They get court hearings. Nevertheless, we don't know if, in fact, these individuals have a rap sheet. They're booked for crimes. So I would encourage those individuals that have this in the background of their shots, because reporters do hits from there, to blur the faces of these people. It blows my mind that the leftist press is more interested in blurring these pictures than standing up for Laken Riley, Rachel Morin, and the list goes on. Nate, whose story we covered, who was killed by an illegal immigrant in a car crash. They don't care about the American citizen. But blur these faces, please.
And Harris, I wanted to ask you about the visual, as you talk about it, the visuals of, remember when the White House released that video saying, look, self-deport back, and you will then be able to enter in later, and we can play a few seconds of it. Let's watch here.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that...
Leave now. If you don't, we will find you, and we will deport you. You will never be.
Entering this country illegally is a crime, and we're not going to forgive it.
If you cross the border, your chances of being apprehended are much greater, and if you are apprehended, you're going to be removed from the country.
Take me home to the place I belong.
And you contrast that communications video, Harris, with the video of us watching hundreds and hundreds of alleged illegal immigrant, criminal, convicted individuals being arrested by our law enforcement agencies.
So politically, we'd call this a deliverable, right? Mm-hmm. But as Americans, we call this a victory for our national security, and it's a safety issue for us. That's why voters went to the polls. They did not go to the polls to give Trump or anybody else a checked win. That's not why they voted. They voted because they wanted to know that they are safer and that we actually have national sovereignty at both our borders, by the way. You can have some good conversations these days with DHS on that northern border, too, and just how much we know now that we perhaps weren't privy to knowing under the Biden administration. So this is really important to see this. And I think on this 99th day, on the eve of 100, it's important to see that their number one issue, as it's turned about, right behind the economy, is being handled. Now it's to the economy. And I have to say, just a hat tip and a thank you for watching MSNBC and bringing forth that and having to watch it for the rest of us.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Take it for the
Someone
team.
sent it to me.
Okay.
You reclaimed your time.
Yeah.
All right, great.
That's true.
Reflected in a brand new poll, a solid majority, 55% approving of President Trump's performance on border security, and the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in an early morning press conference, one that we have really not seen in some time, if ever. She's saying that Trump lived up to his word from the campaign.
President Trump's central campaign promises was to secure the border and end this invasion. In just under 100 days, 99 now to be exact, the president has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise. America's borders are now secure because of President Trump. He has restored the rule of law, enforced our immigration laws, and defended America's sovereignty. The results have been nothing short of extraordinary.
They are going to fly this flag. Peter Ducey live at the White House, beginning a new hour, and how the administration is highlighting the crackdown. And Peter, good morning there.
Good morning, Bill. This week of the 100th day is all about sending messages. That is what the 100 ICE arrest mugshots behind us on the North Lawn are all about. And that is what the arrest of a Milwaukee County judge is all about. It's a message to others in the judicial system about what could happen if they try to help illegal immigrants skirt enforcement.
Would you ever arrest somebody higher up on the judicial food chain, like a federal judge or even a Supreme Court justice?
Well, that's a hypothetical question. Again, I defer you to the Department of Justice for individuals that they are looking at or individual cases. Anyone who is breaking the law or obstructing federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs is putting themselves at risk of being prosecuted, absolutely.
We've also got a new update on the daring theft of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's purse at a D.C. restaurant containing $3,000 and personal effects by a man believed to be in the country illegally.
I don't have the criminal history, but I know the one that stole the purse is supposedly in the country illegally. But, pick the wrong person to steal a purse from.
Tom Homan also said that we have been talking for years about illegal immigrants in this country being somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 million. He thinks the number now is more like 20 million, with 700,000 or so having criminal histories. Bill.
Okay, Peter, thank you. Lead a new hour there on the North Lawn. Peter Ducey, thanks for that. Beautiful day in D.C.
Let's bring in outnumbered co-host and Fox News contributor Kayleigh McEnany. So good to have you. So it's not just Republicans that are supportive of the president's actions. Here's Congressman Cuellar. He's a Democrat from Texas.
people were saying our parents came in the legal way. They came in, became legal residents, and they came in and they did it the right way. But when you see people jumping in, not knowing who they are, that's something wrong.
So that was from his town hall. That's what he saw. And we'll just ask the control room to put up on the board here the numbers and the comparison from Biden to Trump. And as you reflect on that first 99 days, just the stark contrast.
This was a rather interesting number, and Caroline shared this today. Bill Maloosian had obtained it a few weeks ago as well. And I know President Trump's like, who are the 9 people who were released during my tenure, because he's a perfectionist. This is their top issue, and they know it. When you look at any poll, the Washington Post poll just out, 52% say their deportation has been just right or not enough. We also saw the CNN poll from 2 weeks ago that 56% of the country wants all illegal immigrants deported. That is an enormous number, and that's not some. They're saying all. So this is a top issue for them. They know it. They're touting it. It is very smart to do so. And Henry Cuellar getting on board, it's unsurprising. He's one of the more moderate Democrats who said, hey, I want to get on the winning train on this issue.
Border District 2.
Yes.
Yeah,
Kind of been on the right side of that, the Republican side of the issue for some time. The resistance is not quite a capital R yet, but people like J.B. Pritzker out of Illinois are trying to make it so. He was in New Hampshire, focus on New Hampshire now, and said the following.
Already?
Yeah, on Sunday, sure enough.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
Okay, to which Elon Musk responded on X with one word. He said, crazy. That from Musk. What do you think, Kaylee?
So Pritzker went on to say, listen to these lines. He says that one day the portraits of Republicans will be in a museum reserved for tyrants and traitors. He went on to say we'll never join Republicans in the special place in hell reserved for quislings and cowards. So tepid rhetoric, right? Not at all. He is positioning himself in the lane to cater to the far left. The most eye-opening poll I've seen, I'm sure he's looking at this. There was an NBC poll from April 2017, so 1 year into Trump's first term. 33% of Democrats said, we do not want you to work with Trump, even if that means not getting things done. That number, 1 year into Trump's term now, is 65% who say, we don't want you working with Trump. That's the NBC poll, even if it means not getting things done. So the resistance in the left of the party is enormous. It's powerful. It's passionate. It's animating people like Pritzker, perhaps too much with those.
So last week we were showing the poll numbers that said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was sort of on the rise for that left-wing part, but would she have, I mean, this is all so hypothetical, but would she have competition from a Pritzker?
I don't know about a Pritzker. I mean, he doesn't quite have the name ID.
She's got personality.
But hey, you get these, hot and powerful lines on the debate stage. They can make a difference. But I put Pritzker in kind of the same category as like a Chris Christie on the right. Chris Christie's very good on his feet, sharp arguer. He has the lines, but it just didn't quite translate.
I think his language is kind of alarming. I mean, a lot of people consider him to be a low-key kind of...
Oh, no, I don't know. That guy's...
For a low-key billionaire out of Chicago, right? He said, never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
Yeah. No,
is that what we're in for?
I was in rural Illinois this weekend, so the redder part of the state. They know their governor. They know he's hot. They know he's prone to this kind of rhetoric, but that is what we're in for. I mean, I think you're looking at a Democratic primary. That kind of language is going to be what you see on the debate stage.
All right.
Maybe not from a Newsom or Whitmer, but definitely from a president.
But we have a few years to get to.
We do.
Kaylee, thanks. Have a great day. It's good to see you.
See you at noon.
Thanks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.